Mayor and council members, you are now live on YouTube, and TV30 will count you in.
Okay, so we are ready. Start at 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
Welcome everyone to tonight's Monday, June 27, 2022, virtual regular meeting at 7 p.m. of the Livermore City Council. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Can we have the roll call, please?
Councilmember Carling.
Here.
Councilmember Kick.
Here.
Councilmember Monroe.
Here.
Vice Mayor Bonanno.
Here.
Mayor Warner.
Here. Could you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, we're now on to item 3.1, which is the Community Asset Management Program CAMP Outreach Committee Annual Update presented by Chairperson Donna Allen.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. This is Debbie Bell, and I am the staff liaison to the Community Asset Management Program Outreach Committee. And like you just mentioned, Chairperson Allen is going to join us to give you our annual update. And clerk's office, once you make her live, let me know and I'll start the PowerPoint.
Chairperson Allen, you have been unmuted.
Thank you so much, Mary Marie. Hi, good evening, Mayor and City Council. My name is Donna Allen. I am the chair of the Community Asset Management Program Outreach Committee, also known as CAMP. My colleagues and I are excited to be invited again to share with you and the greater Livermore community our various accomplishments over the year. Our journey began in 2016 when the CAMP committee was originally established to focus on infrastructure data analysis. We realized, however, that there was more to the story. So with that, and with your guidance, in 2020, the CAMP committee's mission and duties were adjusted to focus on public outreach. You selected each of us to serve on the CAMP because of our unique perspectives. And we are a cohesive group of 9 individuals, including architects, engineers, public health advocates, business advocates, and so much more. We apply our unique lenses to all the outreach materials we are developing to ensure they are informative and easy to digest. Our approach is simple. We are humanizing infrastructure in a way we can educate our fellow residents about city efforts, but more importantly, convey our message that asset management helps us all protect our home, which is the city of Livermore. But how exactly are we doing that? How exactly are we humanizing infrastructure? In partnership with our consultants, city staff, and CAMP members, we are continuously developing a variety of tools to increase the community's awareness and perception about city's infrastructure, including, but not limited to, our outreach and communication strategy has been very robust. Our brand identity, such as the one here in this slide. We have our adorable Lemoore asset hound, who has been a great partner to many families, and our fact sheet. We have a strong community response to our community surveys. We have a very strong social media presence throughout various platforms where we bring awareness to city's infrastructure and also post to bring attention to the materials we are producing. We have produced animated educational videos, and we have not one, but 2 all ages asset adventures. And our first one was of great success. This was back in fall and in the winter of 2020. I would say in the peak of the pandemic, we had over 600 participants of all the ages venture around the city, hunting for hidden clues and learning about our community-owned assets, as well as other infrastructure. And because we had such a strong feedback and by popular demand, we have created a brand new one that is set to start in Carnegie Park. If for those listening in the public, please feel free to visit our website, which is available here on the slide for more details. As I spoke of our fact sheets, they have some very thorough information about our general fund assets classes, and they are being released on a monthly basis in our social media, again, to spread our message in general. We also have really created strong community connections with other local city organizations and stakeholders, such as the Chamber of Commerce, the Rotary Club, and many others, where our committee members have had the opportunity to present and really speak to what the city is doing as a leader in this area. And last but not least, and in the winter, this is one of the areas that we're really excited about. We are planning to release a new app so that our residents can advocate for our infrastructure by dropping a pin, posting a picture, and letting city staff know when there's a maintenance issue that they might not have been aware of. And again, as I mentioned, the city of Livermore continues to lead in infrastructure management by not only finessing our message, but in educating our community, but also camp staff are continuously working to modernize the city's asset management technology to focus on properly timed repair and rehabilitation projects, moving away from reactive efforts. This is an area that very few cities nationwide are currently focusing on, and something that we can proudly boast about here in the city of Livermore. Just to wrap it up, you recently extended our term through December 2023, and we thank you for the confidence you continue to deposit on us and for everything that we do. We also recognize and appreciate your recent budget actions that demonstrate your financial commitment to the city's infrastructure, such as focusing on stormwater as one of the city's goals. My colleagues and I are grateful to the City Council for your continuous trust, support, allowing us to continue our efforts to develop a comprehensive asset management program. So thank you in advance for the invitation to speak of what the wonderful work we're doing. And if you have any questions, I will be happy to answer them, or Debbie and I will be happy to answer them.
Hey, well, thank you so much. I'm incredibly impressed with the thought of humanizing the asset management program. When I initiated it back in 2016, I never could have imagined that it would take this turn. So it's very good that you've done this. And how do you really get people to care about the assets and to know that we have to invest in them? So I think the direction you and your team have taken here is pretty fantastic. So I never would have thought about making the assets huggable, but you've got your mascot there and everything else. So that's really good. So I appreciate it. Anybody else? Oh, we've got lots of other council members that want to comment here. Let me go get my screen up so I know who was first. Let's see.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you.
Councilmember Monroe.
Thanks. So I wanted to add my thanks. This has always been one of the areas of great interest. Just the idea that this is a absolutely most taken for granted area of the city. We just assume, this is the thing that until it breaks, we assume everything's going fine, and too often ignore the need for proactive management. So when I was introduced to this back in 2018, I was impressed that the city was taking action. And yes, Mayor Warner, I understand and really appreciate your efforts on this. But more than that, I appreciate the ongoing efforts, both to continue to be aware of what our needs are, but then also to involve everybody in the process. as I'm looking at this, all I can say is keep on keeping on. More is better. And I love the fact that you're starting to engage people with how they can help and be part of the process. You know, they matter, they're part of it. This is their city, then they're responsible, as well as, you know, they benefit from it and they're responsible for and to it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilmember Rowe. We appreciate that.
Councilmember Kick.
I just wanted to say my kids and I did this, the original one in 2020. We had a great time. My kids still remind me the different colors of fire hose things. I know words. And they remember what they all mean. I don't, but they do. And so I think it works even better on the younger generations. The only one suggestion that I promised if I ever got asked by my children that I would make, they really want the last thing they visit to be a real Elmore. They want to meet a real Livermore Basset Hound. I think that's the only thing that could make it better. So thank you for continuing to do this and providing a fun way for community members to be involved and ensure that all ages get that this is valuable, because they're going to have to deal with it if we don't do it now. Thank you.
That sounds like a sensible request, Council Kick. So we appreciate that feedback, and we will definitely continue to advocate for such an appearance. Thank you.
Okay. Vice Mayor Bonanno.
Okay, so this is all great. I will say I don't see a lot of, I'm a dog owner and a dog lover. I don't see a lot of Basset Hounds around Livermore. I'm sure there are a few, but if you are in need of a dog and a yellow lab will do, I will volunteer mine. And she would be more than happy to be Livermore. So if you're willing to take anything other than a Basset Hound. So I do have a question. I do really appreciate everything you did. I served on the committee and felt as if it was so important, and you all have taken it to just another level, and the committee, along with the consultants and Ms. Bell, have just done a phenomenal job. I actually do have one question though. You mentioned a new app, and this may be for staff as well. You mentioned a new app that was going to allow people to drop pins when they find a problem of some sort. And I'm wondering that, I assume, will be somehow sort of connected up with our existing problem reporting system, so that there aren't two systems trying to do the same thing. Is someone that could just comment on that?
Good evening, Councilmember Bonanno. This is staff member Debbie Bell, and yes, you are correct. So this Livermore Connect app is actually being developed by our computer software system providers, where we then automatically assign these tasks out to our maintenance staff if it's so necessary. So yes, the app and our software system are actually one piece and the same company and everything like that.
Great. Okay, and again, congratulations on everything you all have done. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Councilmember Monroe, you still have your hand up. Do you want to say something again? Oh, okay, well, thank you so. Okay, so thanks again so much. It's incredible what you guys are doing, and keep on doing it. I'll just say this is very critical to the financial health of the city to get this right and to plan for it. And so this is the major issue that we have to address this before us. So thanks for your work on it.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, we're now on to item 4.0, Citizens Forum. And City Clerk, could you please explain the process?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. The City Council's agenda provides opportunities for the public to participate in the meeting by addressing the City Council in the following ways. First, for non-agendized items, the public has the opportunity during Citizens Forum to address the City Council on any item of interest that is within the City Council's subject matter jurisdiction. Second, for agendized items, the public can address the City Council on each item of business it considers when the mayor opens public comment and should be focused on that particular item. Please note, a speaker is not required to answer any questions from the City Council, and the City Council is not required to answer questions from the public. However, the mayor has the discretion to ask staff to address a speaker's comments when a council member believes it is relevant to a particular business item. When participating in tonight's meeting, one comment may be given per person per item. To provide a comment by Zoom, please use the raise hand feature or *9 if calling in when the item begins. Please do not wait until the public comment period opens for each item to raise your hand. Instead, raise your hand at the beginning of each item. Once public comment opens, each participant's name will be announced and their 3 minutes will begin upon being unmuted. The mayor will announce the conclusion of the public comment period after comments have been voiced into the record. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. We're starting the public forum at 7:15. We'll cut it off at 7:45 if it continues, and then we'll pick it up at the end of the meeting. And the city clerk will announce when we've got about 5 minutes remaining at about 7:20. So could we now proceed? Do we have anybody who wishes to address us?
Yes, Mayor. The first request to speak is from Tracy Kronzak, followed by Alan Marling and Nikki Santi-Steven. Tracy Kronzak, please unmute yourself.
Hi, folks. Thank you very much. My name is Tracy Kronzak, and I live here in Livermore. I'm also a member of the General Plan Advisory Committee, which has been an incredible process. If folks are interested, please do go to Imagine Livermore 2045 to learn more about it. I just wanted to use public forum to call to the attention an ongoing thing happening downtown to the mayor's office and city council regarding a proposed referendum on Eden housing and make these comments a matter of public records. Most explicitly, my concerns are couched in 3 things. 1, is this even necessary? Because we have already voted on the downtown plan and Eden housing as part of Measure P. 2, is this intentionally misleading voters, as the solicitations I've seen have been couched in language very much such as overturn Eden, which, based on the timeline and approved actions of this project and the downtown plan, has the development company for Eden Housing taking over ownership of the land in September, long prior to the November ballot. And 3, is this even legal? There seems to be very clear statute in the state of California regarding the administrative actions being taken to execute previously decided city actions such as this. At this point, at this juncture, not only am I concerned about misleading voters, but also should this kind of thing actually make it to the ballot, it would be incredibly disruptive to the downtown plan, which has been previously decided, as well as the actions of the General Plan Advisory Committee, which are considering development areas such as the special downtown and Isabel plans. So I apologize if this has already been discussed at the previous meeting. I was out of town for business, but I do want to continue to raise this as a matter of public concern, largely because I think a large part of Livermore may be being lied to about the intentionality and the legality of this referendum. That's all. Thank you.
Next speaker is Alan Marling, followed by Nikki Santi-Steven. Alan Marling, please unmute yourself.
Mayor and Council, the LV PAC, which runs the Bankhead, is changing its name to Livermore Valley Arts, LVA. Its executive director, Chris Charter, said last year to this council, quote, "Diversity, equity, and inclusion is important to us and a priority in our leadership," end quote. Unfortunately, LVA's board members fund and promote lawsuits that are anti-diversity, iniquitous, and excluding. Board members Joan Sepula and Gene King's litigation campaigns are blocking a local solar farm, the Artemis Project, and local affordable housing, the Eden Project. The more solar energy we have, the less we will have to rely on dirty power, which is often produced in areas of low privilege. This is called environmental racism. The more affordable housing we have, the less working class people have to commute and suffer from threats of eviction. Housing is also a matter of racial justice. Daniel Yentl, president of the National Low Income Housing Coalition, wrote, quote, "African Americans represent 13% of the general population, but are 40% of people experiencing homelessness and more than 50% of homeless families with children. Black families are 26% of all extremely low income renters," end quote. As long as its board members litigate against solar energy and affordable housing, Livermore Valley Arts is guilty of hypocrisy and harming our community, regardless of its name. And until this harmful hypocrisy is resolved, I urge this council to hold LVA accountable and in no way accommodate it. Thank you.
The next speaker is Nikki Santisteban. Please unmute yourself.
Hello, good evening. I'm a citizen. I've been here. I went to high school here and I'm back in the area. And with the events that have happened on the national scale in the past week, I was hoping to hear the council respond to what's recently gone on with the ruling on Roe v. Wade. And I know that Governor Newsom has spoken today about the state being a safe reproductive haven, but I'd like to hear what Livermore as a city plans to do to help continue that, to help foster it, and hopefully to offer some respite to our brothers and sisters in other states who don't have the same freedoms that we do here. So that's my main concern, and I'd like to hear what the council has to say.
There are no more requests to speak at this time.
Okay, I'll close the public forum, our citizens forum, and we're on to consent calendar. And consent calendar items are considered routine in nature and acted upon by the city council with a single action. Members of the audience wishing to provide public input must use the raise hand feature in Zoom during the public comment period to comment on any of the consent calendar items. At this point, is there any item that a council member would like to pull for a separate discussion? Okay, I see none. I would then I'll open this for public comment. Do we have anybody who wishes to address us on the consent calendar?
Mayor, no comments have been received.
Okay, I'll close the public comment on the consent calendar. Could I get a motion for approval, please? Vice Mayor Bonanno?
Move approval of the consent calendar.
Okay, I think I saw Councilmember Monroe next.
Yeah, I think I beat Councilmember Curling to the second punt. He can third it though.
Okay, well, you guys can, after this, go for the buzzers in a quiz show. So okay, we've had moved and seconded. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Carling,
Aye.
Councilmember Kick,
Aye.
Uh-oh.
Councilmember Kick,
Aye. Can you guys hear me?
I
Yes.
can hear you.
Okay.
Councilmember Monroe,
Aye.
So,
Vice Mayor Bonanno,
Aye.
Mayor Warner.
aye. Consent calendar passes unanimously. We're on to item 6.1, hearing for the confirmation of the levy of assessments for the city's landscape maintenance districts for fiscal year 2022-23. Can we have the staff presentation, please?
Yes, Honorable Mayor Warner, members of the City Council, this is Mariana Marasheva, your city manager. Item 6.1 is going to be presented by our Public Works Supervisor, Joe Prime. Mr. Prime?
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council members. The city currently has 92 landscape maintenance districts organized under the Landscape and Lighting Act of 1972. In order to levy assessments to pay for the maintenance of these districts, the city must conduct a public hearing. On June 13th, the City Council approved the notice of intent and adopted tonight, June 27th, as the public hearing date. Each year, staff reviews the cost, maintenance level, and long-term financial stability of these 92 districts. Staff then recommends the level of assessment required to meet both the short-term and long-term maintenance needs of each district. Staff has completed this process, and all of the proposed assessments contained in the engineer's report are within the pre-approved caps. Staff is asking for the council to conduct the public hearing and then adopt the resolution conforming the levy of assessments. This concludes my presentation. Staff is available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. At this point, I'll open the public hearing. Do we have anybody who wishes to address us on 6.1?
Mayor, no comments have been received.
Okay, I'll close the public hearing on 6.1. Bring it back to the council. Do you have any questions, comments? I see none. So thank you for all this work here. I think Councilmember Carling.
I'll move approval, staff recommendation.
Okay, thank you. I'll second it. And seeing no further discussion, do we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Carling,
Aye.
Councilmember Kick,
Aye.
Councilmember Monroe,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Bonanno,
Aye.
Mayor Warner.
Aye, that passes unanimously. We're on to item 6.2, public hearing to adopt the Tri-Valley Transportation Council 2020 Nexus Fee Update Study. Could we have the staff report, please?
Yes, Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council, this is once again your City Manager, Mariana Marasheva. This presentation is going to be presented by Malika Ramachandran, our Assistant City Engineer, with assistance from Mike Schmidt from Kimley Horn. Thank you.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council members. The presentation today is on the TVTC 2020 Nexus Fee Study, the funding plan, and the 2022 transportation development fee rates. Currently, TVTC funds are programmed for four cities projects, and they are the Isabel Avenue I-580 interchange phase 2, the Vasco Road I-580 interchange, Greenville I-580 interchange, and Iron Horse Trail. To receive TVTC fund, the city has to adopt a resolution adopting the TVTC Nexus Fee Study, the funding plan, and related studies. I'd like to introduce Michael Schmidt from Kimley Horn, who prepared the studies, and Michael will go into the details of the Nexus study, recommended rates, and the approved funding plan. Michael?
Thank you. Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council members. My name is Michael Schmidt with Kimley Horn and Associates. Today I'm presenting on the adoption of the Tri-Valley Transportation Development Fee, and these are the major topics I'll cover. Next slide, please. Thank you. I'll cover the background, I'll cover the Nexus study and the strategic expenditure plan process. We'll talk about the strategic expenditure plan process and the recommended rate adjustments. We'll cover the resulting revenue of the recommendation, the approved funding plan, and finally, we'll talk about the recommendation. Next slide, please. So TVTC was formed on October 13th, 2013, and includes Alameda County, Contra Costa County, and the cities of Livermore, Pleasanton, San Ramon, Dublin, and the town of Danville. Its primary purpose is to manage the impacts of projected land use on regional transportation. To date, there have been 3 rounds of projects considered to address transportation impacts. They include List A, which included 11 projects that were evaluated in the first Nexus study in 1995. List B, which included 11 additional projects that were evaluated in the 2008 Nexus study. And finally, List C, which is the current list, which includes 23 additional projects that were evaluated with remaining List A and B projects in the 2020 Nexus study. Next slide, please. There are 2 distinct studies that have been carried out in support of the Tri-Valley Transportation Development Fee. First is the Nexus study, which was then followed by the Strategic Expenditure Plan. The Nexus study was completed first, and it considers a 20-year horizon for the purpose of demonstrating the benefits of the project to Tri-Valley area and the legal requirements necessary to charge an impact fee. The Nexus study is required to be updated every 8 years. The results of the Nexus study is a determination as to the maximum fee that can be charged to new development. And the study, it complies with both AB 1600 and AB 602. Most recently, the Strategic Expenditure Plan was completed. And the purpose of the Strategic Expenditure Plan is to plan funding for select projects over the next 10 years. So it narrows the population of projects that we have under the Nexus study to a fewer select number of projects for funding. As part of the Strategic Plan Expenditure Plan, the actual fee is determined, which has always been less than the maximum. The Strategic Expenditure Plan also documents project prioritization and forecasted revenue and expenditures on an annual basis for the 10 years it covers. Next slide, please. So this shows the rate expenditure plan and recommended rate adjustments. So all categories will have rates increases in funding year 22 and 23, with the exception of retail, which has an additional increase in funding year 23-24. Most of the categories have been set at an approximately 15% of the maximum, and you can see that in column 3 on the screen, with 12% of the maximum for other. In years where there is not an increase in the rates, the construction cost index is used as the basis for increasing rates. So this year, there won't be any additional CCI increase because all of the rates would be adjusted. If no CCI had been applied this year, given inflation, it would be about 8% that would have been applied to the existing rate schedule. As shown, the recommended change in rates will result in a more than 30% increase in rates to single family and retail categories. Remaining categories are approximately 12% or less of an increase over existing, and only industrial has a slight decrease. Next slide. Based on the land use forecast and the recommended rates from the prior slide, it is estimated the program will generate approximately $162 million over the next 10 years. Based on the existing formula, 20% or $32 million will be returned to local jurisdictions, and about $1.3 million will be used to manage the project, and that's located as the admin fee. This leaves approximately $129 million to fund projects over the next year. Based on the top 15 projects being selected, which total about $1 billion in construction costs, and the desire to fund about 15% of these projects, there should be sufficient funding as shown there. There were also about $14 million worth of remaining commitments from the last strategic expenditure plan that are being carried forward as well. Next slide. In particular, I wanted to highlight these projects that are of particular interest to the city of Livermore as a lead agency. And particularly, the SCP includes funding for Isabel Avenue and I-580 interchange phase 2 to the amount of $5.15 million in funding year 2029 through 32. Vasco Road I-580 interchange, about $8.57 million through funding year 2024 to 2026. Greenville I-580 interchange, about $8.6 million, funding year 2030 to 32. And then Iron Horse Trail, about $2.7 million in funding year 2029 and 2030. Next slide. And the recommendation is to receive the Tri-Valley Transportation Development Fee funds for the approved city projects in the funding plan. The city has to conduct a public hearing and adopt a resolution adopting the Tri-Valley Transportation Council 2020 Nexus Fee Update Study, the AB 602 Supplemental Analysis, the Tri-Valley Transportation Council Strategic Expenditure Plan 2022 Update, the Prioritization of Projects and Funding Plan, and the 2022 Tri-Valley Transportation Development Fee Rates and making the required findings. And I'll take questions.
Okay, thank you. At this point, I'll open the public comment on this item. Is there anybody who wishes to address us? The public hearing, I guess is what it's called.
No comments have been received.
So I'll close the public hearing on this item and bring it back to the council. Vice Mayor Bonanno.
Yeah, thank you for the report. I do have a question or two on a slide. The slide where, I'm sorry, I don't remember the title. The slide where you said we need $1 billion, we've got 120 something, and so everything's okay. The table, could you go back to that one?
Sure.
Go through that again, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, it's actually, I think, slide 6, if someone could pull them back up and move back to slide 6.
Yes, that's the one.
Right. So yeah, to your point, yes. So the construction costs are $1 billion, and you are correct in the fact that this will not cover the full construction costs and only covers 15%. The desire of the board and the subcommittee that developed this approach was that they wanted to make a substantial impact, but that it's understood that just given the length of the list of the projects that are on there and just the amount of funding fee source, that it's not plausible to fully fund any of these, the full list of projects. So it was intended that this would make a big splash, but clearly additional funding sources will need to be identified.
Okay, and you didn't, thank you for that. But you didn't speak about the potential for additional funding sources, which we will continued to seek, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
You didn't speak a lot about that, but I sort of,
Yeah.
assumed, but I wanted to make it clear that this is what we're going to collect with our fee structure, but that other sources of funding will hopefully allow us to do more than just what the fees themselves would allow us. Is that a fair way to say it?
That's a great way to say it. That's exactly on point. That there'll obviously be the opportunity to seek grants and other opportunities for funding beyond just the fee.
Great. And then I just want to make one other point, which is in the staff report, and that's just the different. I mean, it's sort of, it's obvious if you think about it, and if you're familiar with what this funding goes for, but this really can make a significant impact on vehicle hours of delay, which is the metric used in our staff report. So these are really important projects in that they allow us to do better with respect to circulation and traffic backups and delays. And I just think that it should not go without saying why we care about these dollars and what they help us accomplish in this area. So that's the only question I had. And thanks very much again for your work.
Councilmember Kick.
So I was on the subcommittee for this, and I just want to address a couple things to make it clear. So there was a lot of back and forth on whether or not certain categories should get discounts. I was in the strong camp of, I don't think so, unless it's multi-unit housing, but that just the math ended up working on that. Another thing that I wanted to point out is that we had a lot of public comment and feedback that using vehicle hours of delay as our metric doesn't actually align with our climate goals. Our climate goals should be decreasing vehicle miles traveled, which means that we should not just be funding projects like road widening. Instead, we should actually be focusing our efforts on multimodal transportation and service. Currently, the TVTC does not fund services like adding bus lines. We've got a lot of asks for us to change what we do and do not fund with this source of funding because it does not clearly align with our climate goals. And so that is something that I hope will change in the future. So it wasn't that we didn't think about it, it's that it's not within the purview. So that was discussed. And then we did include Valley Link on this. We were going to pick 15 projects, and it's technically 16 because Valley Link tied for number 15. We based it on who's ready, who has other funding. So we're not just going to give 15% of the project cost to a project that has no other funding because it's not going to get done. So how much funding they have and how close they are to putting a shovel in the ground was something that really determined where this money went. So happy to provide any other feedback on why certain decisions were made if others have questions, but I just wanted to point out that big differential in VHD versus VMT, which was discussed and contentious with public comment.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Councilmember Monroe.
I just wanted to appreciate the presentation. I really appreciate Councilmember Kick's clarifications. Oh, excuse me. As I'm looking at this and thinking about what we've already done so far in this meeting, a couple of things come to mind. First of all, Vice Mayor Bonanno raised the point of how, just how important this is, why this matters so much. That certainly was part of what Councilmember Kick said as well. I would love to see some form of communicating outside of the council, outside of the meetings to the population as a whole to help them understand this is infrastructure writ large. We just talked about infrastructure at the city level. This is another level, both with regard to climate goals, but also with regard to how we think about land use and housing and jobs at the regional level with the 5 cities. But then why we're looking at the 5 cities is that we also live in a larger regional area where, in fact, whether we'd like to see more public transportation or not, short term, we're living with what we're living with. So that's one piece of it. It's how we're all connected. I'd love to see that somehow explained in have a communication piece of this. And then the second thing that really came to mind as I was looking, particularly at the item in the consent calendar on the use of the funding from from state and feds, is that we're asking people as individuals to contribute, but we're connected at that level too, at where the money comes from. Again, I think that understanding how those connections happen matters for everybody in terms of, understanding who pays for the road they drive in, and what makes their lives more or less pleasant. So anyway, thank you very much. I really appreciate the presentation.
Okay, if there are no other comments, would somebody like to make a motion? Vice Mayor Bonanno.
Approval of item 6.3, staff recommendations.
Okay. Councilmember Carling.
I'll second the motion.
Great. Could we have a roll call?
There's further discussion because I remembered I forgot to say something. Is
Wow.
that okay?
Okay, it's been moved.
I know that we can have further
wait,
discussion on the motion.
Wait. Yeah, it's moved and seconded. It's time for further discussion as well. So go ahead.
I also wanted to make sure that I pointed out that there was some comment about maybe the math not being 100% correct, because it didn't take into account the current update for housing elements. So, and because it's only done every 8 years, it doesn't actually align that well with the housing element update. So our max fee could have potentially been much higher. And so there was some public comment about that as well. So I'm hoping that we do a better job of aligning when our housing element update happens and when this happens, so we can use the proper, most recent data. And I just wanted to make sure I had that on the record. Thank you.
Okay, I want to ask a question based on what you just said. Given that these different things have different schedules, you're saying that because of the timing differences and when things get done or updated, that there's a difference? Does this eventually come out in the wash in the next time, or are we always under collecting? Could somebody on staff answer that question?
Mr. Schmidt or Mr. Spence, do we have a response?
Yeah, I could take a crack at it. It's a great point that there's a little bit of a disconnect between it. It is worth pointing out that the housing allocations are more of a requirement that we accommodate them. And so there's this natural tension where on the one hand, we have people who do forecasting and they forecast, population growth and employment. And then on the other hand, we've got these regional housing allocations, which are more of a requirement to accommodate. So even taking that into account, to the point, there is absolutely, hopefully the next go around, they'll be better aligned so that the forecasting can do a better job of accounting for the amount of allocation that's being provided to the city. But I still think there's going to be a bit of a tension in just resolving whether that amount of allocation is supported by the state's Department of Finance forecasts. And that's a little bit where some of these tensions are coming from. So hopefully that helps for context, but it may not be a clear answer. Thank you.
Mr. Schmidt, this is City Attorney Jason Long-College. Just for a point of clarification, taking into account that level of uncertainty. However, when the fees were set, they set them below, as Councilmember Kick said, the highest amount, to have a conservative approach to make sure that the fees were properly aligned based upon your methodology. Is that correct?
Correct. Right. And the maximum rate hasn't been used. It's, as I showed, it's more about 15% of it. If we added more housing, it would actually potentially bring the maximum down because the denominator would be reduced, when we have the total number of projects. But again, since the agents, the history has been not to charge the maximum, it's not to say that the rates would still be the same or similar.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to clarify, we're not worried about under collecting. So this is what I heard, bottom line. So thank you. At this point, I think we can proceed with the roll call vote.
Member Carling?
Aye.
Councilmember Kick?
Aye.
Councilmember Monroe,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Bonanno,
Aye.
Mayor Warner.
Aye, that passes unanimously. We're now on to item 6.3, hearing to receive and consider all evidence and reports regarding the adoption of a master fee schedule. Could we have the staff report on this, please?
Yes, Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council, this is Mariana Marasheva, your City Manager. Item 6.3 is going to be presented by Key Lam, Management Analyst in the Administrative Services Department. Mr. Lam?
Yes, hi. Good evening, Honorable Mayor, Vice Mayor, and City Council member. Can you guys hear me okay? My audio is okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. So it's my pleasure to be here to present the master fee schedule. And let me share my files. Just give me a moment, please. Okay, great. So I want to give you guys an overview of the master fee schedule. It is a schedule to refer all the fee charges by all the city department for certain services provided. And the fee are based on a list of fee we already have in. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Sorry for the technical error. Okay, so so the master fee schedule, the fees are based on the prior year numbers, and then we adjust for most of the fee, we adjust by the annual change in February CPI. This year, the CPI change is much bigger than the past, is 5.2%. And the schedule does not include any property and developmental related fees, such as the impact fees, landscape maintenance, district assessments, and franchise fees. Changes are based on the department's request. Sorry. So for the fee methodology, all the fee were initially especially by the external fee study. Then annually, the internal staff reviews and perform the fee analysis. And the fee charged by all the departments are the actual cost to recover the actual cost of providing services, including the direct labor costs and overhead costs. Okay, and then for the upcoming fiscal year, we have 7 divisions that have new or modified fees, and overall the new fees are the one that are existing fee charged by the departments, but they haven't been in the master fee schedule. So we are including those in the items the first time on the master fee schedule. And also there are some fees that are modified during the year. For example, the finance tobacco retail license. Last year, this number represent the initial registration fee plus the annual renewal fee. So the number was much bigger and was not presented correctly. So this year, we just separate this item and then present just for the initial registration fee. And for the division, such as fire preventions and the libraries, there are fees that modify because they, the department staff evaluate the fees, and they determine that the fee need to be lower, adjusted to the level that is just to cover the cost instead of making changes based on the CPI. And besides the new and modified fees, we also have, we also have 4 divisions. They have, some deleted fees. The reason for that is because they are no longer applied. For example, the planning department, the fire preventions, the police and water resources. Some of the fee are because we no longer use it, or maybe we just obsolete, so we don't have it anymore. Any questions so far?
We're good.
Okay, good. The next slide is a supplemental memo. The memo is regarding on page 17 to 19. Under the land use entitlement permit section, we added a footnote to specify that recovery of costs can be done through a time and materials method in certain applications, and that the multiplied entitlement fee discount apply to certain fees in this case. So the staff recommendations is the City Council adopt a resolution adopting the City Master Fee Schedule, incorporating the certain fee changes and superseded last year's resolution 2021-113. Any questions?
Okay, no, I think you not at this point. So you've concluded your presentation, correct?
Yes.
Okay, good. We'll come back if there are any questions. I've got a couple, but at this point, I'm going to open the public hearing. Do we have anybody who wishes to address us on this?
Mayor, no comments have been received.
Okay, thank you. I'll close the public hearing. Now I'll bring it back to the council. And in particular, what I wanted to cover was the last thing you just mentioned, the correction to the fee schedule.
Yes.
Where we're noting that the time and materials is an option. I would like to request that we adopt this fee schedule as presented, whether we have the understanding with staff that it will be the default option for things like pergolas that don't have walls, and that you'll address that explicitly next year in the fee schedule. I had talked with Mr. Spence earlier, and I just want to make sure that what I just said is correctly stated, and if not, either you or Mr. Spence could make sure what I said is correct.
Mr. Mayor, this is Paul Spence, your Community Development Director. That is correct. We have used the time and materials on special or unique projects such as open air structures, and per your recommendation here, we would continue to do that this year, but bring back an updated fee study that would call those out as a special category and give them a specific fee the next time we bring this back. So that would work.
Okay, thank you. I want to say, it's clearly a lot of work to develop this master fee schedule. Good to see that you adjust, both add and delete. So that's good. So it looks like the adjustments are fine. Is there anybody else on the council who wishes to ask a question or make a comment? Or even a motion?
I'll move approval.
Okay, thank you. And Councilmember Monroe?
I'll second the motion and appreciate the clear presentation.
Yes, thank you so much. Could we, seeing no further discussion, do we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Carling.
Aye.
Councilmember Kay.
Aye.
Councilmember Monroe.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Bonanno.
Aye.
Mayor Warner.
Aye, motion passes unanimously. We're now on to 7.1, appointment of council members to the City Council Subcommittee on Advisory Bodies for the period of July 1 to December 31st, 2022. We have the staff presentation on this, please.
Yes, Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council, this is Mariana Marasheva, your City Manager. Item 7.1 will be introduced by our City Clerk, Marie Weber. Ms. Weber?
Good evening, Mayor and council members. The City Council has established 9 standing advisory bodies comprised of more than 70 volunteers. To serve on one of these advisory bodies, community members apply during a recruitment period and are interviewed by a subcommittee of the City Council. The City Council Subcommittee on Advisory Bodies is a 2-member subcommittee of the City Council appointed by the mayor and tasked with interviewing applicants for the Livermore's advisory boards, commissions, and committees. Recruitment for advisory body vacancies is managed by the City Clerk's office, and interview nights are scheduled quarterly for known vacancies and as needed to fill unanticipated vacancies throughout the year. Serving in 6-month increments, the subcommittee conducts interviews and recommends appointments for confirmation by the full City Council. Upon appointment by the mayor, staff recommends the mayor appoint 2 council members to serve on the City Council Subcommittee on Advisory Bodies for the period of July 1st to December 31st. And with that, I'm available for questions.
Okay, thank you. I'll open the public comment on this item. Does anybody wish to address this?
Mayor, no comments have been received.
Okay, I'll close the public comment. Any member of the City Council wish to say anything at this point? Okay, I will, as I got the ability, I'll appoint the 2 members to the City Council for this next period. That's Vice Mayor Bonanno and myself. So I think that item is now concluded, and we're on to item 7.2. And this is receive the Alameda County Local Agency Formation Commission 20-year report on Measure D. Could we have the staff report on this, please?
Absolutely, Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council. This once again is your City Manager, Mariana Marasheva. Item 7.2 will be presented by Jake Potter, an Associate Planner. Mr. Potter?
Yes. Thank you. All right. So as mentioned, this evening we'll be discussing the Local Agency Formation Commission's 20-year Measure D report and proposed recommendations for changes to Alameda County planning documents. So as you know, the South Livermore Valley has been a thriving wine region in California since about the 1880s. And it was thriving until about the early to mid 20th century, when prohibition, infestation, and urban encroachment caused the wineries in the region to stagnate. And this ultimately prompted the cities of Livermore, Pleasanton, and Alameda County to propose a number of changes to planning documents in order to revive the wine country. So that included the city of Livermore's South Livermore Valley Specific Plan and South Livermore urban growth boundaries. Also the county's South Livermore Valley area plan as well. And you can see here the South Livermore Valley area is generally within the red line. That includes properties within both the county and the city. So another planning document and tool that was used to stabilize the wine country was Measure D. So this was a ballot initiative that was passed by Alameda County voters back in 2000 that amended the county's planning documents to do 2 things. First, it established an urban growth boundary, a county urban growth boundary around the existing urbanized areas of Livermore, Pleasanton, and Dublin. You can see that is generally the area shown in purple here. The second is that it restricted the uses beyond that county urban growth boundary out in the area shaded in yellow to agricultural and viticultural uses. You can also see here in blue, that's the general area of the South Livermore Valley. Now, LAVCO, a Local Agency Formation Commission, has prepared a 20-year report on the effectiveness of Measure D. And with that, I'd like to introduce Rachel Jones, the Executive Officer of LAVCO, to describe the report, its findings, and next steps.
Thank you so much, Jake. And I just want to say, so Alameda LAFCO is a state regulatory planning agency that understands it does not have regulatory land use authority and has no means by which to directly affect any potential changes in Alameda County land use policy. However, as a state mandated agency that acts on boundary matters as an independent agency, LAFCOs are empowered to adopt and consider changes to its policies to better reflect local conditions and to assist in seeking balance between competing interests. And we do this by using a planning tool, also known as a sphere of influence or sphere, to dictate probable future boundary and service areas to help maintain orderly growth and development in the region. So in response to a presentation Alameda LAFCO received in November 2020 from the Livermore Valley Wine Growers Association, Alameda LAFCO requested an independent special study to review how Measure D has affected agricultural and open space lands and surrounding communities approximately 20 years since the ballot measure's passage. The report aimed to consider how the implementation of Measure D has met LAFCO's own policies pertaining to agriculture and open space needs. The primary LAFCO policies principally include looking at supporting urbanization within cities and not prime ag land or important urban space, identify important agricultural lands and open space included in annexation and sphere of influence proposals. Also looking at the conditioning annexation applications and sphere amendments on the retention of Measure D restrictions, and also establishing incentives to support agricultural and open space viability. LAFCO's Measure D was intended to provide LAFCO with this objective information and data to better understand the economic and open space needs of the area and to assess whether current East County Area Plan policies as directed by Measure D support or constrain these needs. Specifically, the report reviews the effectiveness of current ECAP policies related to the following key indicators. So the report questions, have current ECAP policies supported urbanization within cities and not prime ag land or important urban space? Have current ECAP policies identified and protected important ag and open space lands relative to LAFCO considerations of annexation proposals and sphere amendments? Are Alameda County's ECAP policies and its corresponding county zoning regulations that specifically pertain to agricultural uses are more or less restrictive compared to the regulations of other Bay Area and relevant counties? And do the policies of East County Area Plan and corresponding zoning regulations disadvantage Alameda County agricultural businesses to a greater degree than agricultural rules and regulations of other locations? Next slide, please. So basically, and if you review this next slide, the study found that of those 9 counties included in the report, only 4 counties, which are Alameda, Sonoma, Marin, and Monterey, have regulations that restrict the maximum building intensity or Florida area ratio requirements for non-residential uses in agriculturally designated or zoned lands. Of those 4 counties that do not have applicable Florida area ratio regulations, Alameda County's 1% Florida area ratio regulations are substantially more restrictive on the size of non-residential buildings. In comparison, Sonoma, Marin, and Monterey counties regulations allow the potential for up to a maximum 5% Florida area ratio requirement, and the other 4 counties included in the study have no Florida area ratio restriction at all. The report also illustrated that the agricultural economy remains stagnant. Despite significant losses in farm-based employment, the revenue from East County agricultural operations appears to remain stable but not growing. The stability of overall agricultural business revenue is driven by continued strong growth in sales in wine grapes. However, the wine industry's revenue growth eclipses the relatively sizable decline in sales revenue and productive agricultural use of other agricultural activities like crop harvesting and horse boarding within East County. While revenue may be sufficient to cover annual operating expenses, in many cases, the amount of annual revenue above annual operating expenses is not sufficient to cover the amortized expenses of establishing a vineyard or to generate a return on the investment in the vineyard. It is these findings that have contributed to Alameda LAFCO's proposed recommendations on the amendment of ballot measure D, and hopefully to help maintain the economic vitality of the region. Next slide, please. It was Alameda LAFCO's, it started in March of, I believe, our March 10th meeting, And then our LAFCO's May 12th regular meeting, we had a draft first at the March 10th meeting. But at Alameda LAFCO's May 12th regular meeting, the commission approved its final report on its 20-year review of Measure D. The commission directed staff to work with a selected ad hoc selection committee to develop recommendations from the report's key findings and conclusions. LAFCO now seeks local agency feedback on its proposed recommendations to ensure that they reflect the local conditions of the area. Alameda LAFCO is now accepting comments on these proposed recommendations until Tuesday, July 5th. LAFCO will then review any comments received and incorporate feedback into the recommendations accordingly. These recommendations will then be presented to our LAFCO commission to adopt at its July 14th regular meeting. From there, staff will present these recommendations to the Board of Supervisors for consideration ahead of their scheduled first and second reading ordinances on the approval of the proposed ballot Measure D amendment. And now, as I discuss the reasons as to why LAFCO commissioned this special study and our next steps, I will have Jake Potter expand on LAFCO's proposed recommendations.
Yes, thank you. So we've sort of been alluding at some of these modifications that would occur to the Alameda County planning documents. And so as Executive Officer Jones had mentioned, through kind of a stakeholder process and sort of through LAFCO's process, there are three main groups of changes that are proposed to Alameda County's planning documents. The first would essentially amend the South Livermore Valley area plan to increase the amount of floor area for agricultural buildings. So the key point here is that increase in floor area would only apply to agricultural buildings as defined. And so that would be buildings like wineries or other structures that actually produce an agricultural product. There would also be an allowance for sort of a clustering of development, but in no case would any parcel have less than 90% of the parcel's area planted. So that's consistent with existing South Livermore Valley area plan standards. And we've shown here just an exhibit. So the red line indicates a parcel and the blue indicates the current allowed floor area ratio under county standards. The green box shows the proposed modifications. So you can see, again, they would allow for an increase specifically for agricultural buildings, but would not exceed kind of 10% of an individual parcel. Now, the second kind of group of amendments here would prohibit hemp and cannabis cultivation within the South Livermore Valley area plan. So again, I'm showing the map of the overall East County area plan. That's the larger yellow region. The South Livermore Valley area plan is sort of a subset of that. That's here in the blue line. So again, these proposed amendments would prevent such cultivation within the South Livermore Valley area plan, but would still allow for that type of cultivation outside in the East County area plan, so out in the yellow hatched areas. The third group of modifications is related to the allowed uses in the county's cultivated ag district. So the intent here would be to allow for more visitor serving uses to attract more individuals to the South Livermore Valley and sort of increase the wine country's viability. So all of these proposed uses would be conditional and that they would require a conditional use permit as approved by the county's planning commission. That would include uses like hot air balloon rides, artisan furniture workshops, boutique cannabis dispensaries, 140-room hotel, and markets and delis. Now, specifically, a boutique cannabis dispensary has a unique definition in that it does have to highlight characteristics of the local region, but it would be another conditional use that would be allowed in the Alameda County cultivated ag district. So city staff has reviewed the proposed modifications from the stakeholder groups and LAFCO and has found that they are consistent with Livermore's general plan, that seeks to kind of enhance the South Livermore Valley and increase the viability of the wine country. And so with that, staff recommends that the City Council receive Alameda LAVCO's 20-year report on Measure D and provide both city and LAVCO staff with discussion and direction regarding the proposed amendment. So with that, that concludes our presentations, and we welcome any questions that you may have.
Okay, thank you. We'll get to questions after the public comment. I'd like to open the public comment on this item. Do we have anybody who wishes to address us?
Yes, Mayor, there are 3 requests to speak. The first request is from Lori Souza, followed by David Rounds, Friends of Livermore, and David Epstein. Lori Souza, please unmute yourself.
Well, good evening, Mayor Warner, City Council members and staff. I'm Lori Souza, and I currently serve as the chair of the board for the Tri-Valley Conservancy. I've been on the board for the past 7 years. And I want to thank LAVCO for sponsoring this report on the efficacy of Measure D. It has helped to safeguard our agricultural preserve here in the South Livermore Valley. I especially appreciate LAVCO including the amendments to the East County Area Plan that the TVC is requesting the Board of Supervisors adopt. These amendments are technical in nature and are important to have in place along with Measure D in order to fulfill the vision of a vibrant wine country and conserved agriculture in our region. I hope you'll accept your staff's recommendations and join us in advocating for these revisions to be adopted expeditiously. Thank you.
Next speaker is David Rounds, followed by David Epstein. David Rounds, please unmute yourself.
Good afternoon. Friends of Livermore wholeheartedly supports this effort to modify Measure D with the changes proposed that we believe will improve the viability of agriculture in the South Livermore Valley Area Plan. With that, however, the devil is in the details. The LAVCO letter, attachment 1, has 2 important errors. The letter erroneously describes the proposed county ballot measure as allowing a 2% FAR in the East County Area Plan and 3.5% in the South Livermore Valley Area Plan. The 3.5% is correct for ECAP, for the South Livermore Valley Area Plan. It is also correct for the FAR, not 2%, not in ECAP, not the 2% that's shown. In both areas, up to 1% can be for visitor serving uses, and 2.5% is for agricultural buildings that are not meant for the public or for social events. The second error is that the 2-acre building envelope is erroneously described. The LAVCO letter, attachment 1, says that all agricultural uses must occur within that 2-acre envelope. It is buildings, of course, not uses, that must be contained within the 2-acre development envelope. And even here, buildings for agricultural uses can be located outside the 2-acre development envelope if necessary for agricultural use. Our plan is to share this information with LAVCO before their final review and approval, which is scheduled for July 14th. And we wanted to thank you for letting us share this information with you tonight. And we do encourage you to support this effort by the TVC and the Wine Growers Group to improve agriculture in the South Livermore Valley Area Plan. Thank you.
The last request to speak is from David Epstein. Please unmute yourself.
Livermore City Council, I'm David Epstein, Executive Director for the Tri-Valley Conservancy. And on behalf of the Board of Directors, I want to express our support for your adoption of the LAVCO Measure D report and their recommendations. The TVC appreciates the efforts of the LAVCO in commissioning the 20-year review of Measure D, Save Agricultural and Open Space Lands Initiative. As stated in the report, its purpose was to better understand the economic and open space needs of the area and to assess whether the current ECAP policies as directed by Measure D support or constrain these needs. We also appreciate the LAVCO incorporating the important research findings from the University of California Davis study commissioned by the TVC, providing a full and balanced view of this critically important issue. We want to draw your attention to the recommendations for addressing stagnant agricultural economy and the report's attachments. The LAVCO is encouraging the County of Alameda Board of Supervisors to approve the TVC's proposed amendments to Alameda County's East County Area Plan, South Livermore Valley Area Plan, and zoning codes. We respectfully request that you consider supporting this action as well. Thank you.
Any further speakers?
Mayor, at this time, there are no more requests to speak.
Okay, I'll close the public comment, bring it back to the council. I've got a first question to Rachel Jones. We heard the corrections by David Rounds. Do you agree? And is that those corrections being made?
Ms. Jones, are you able to hear us?
Excuse me. Can you hear me right now?
Yes.
Thank you. So thank you, Mayor Warner. Yes, LAFCO realized that we had that incorrect percentage, and it is updated for our meeting scheduled at our July 14th meeting. And then the other note that was in our findings and conclusions, and we will make sure to correct that and have that information updated. But we definitely realized that we had that incorrect information for the 2% Florida area ratio requirement.
Okay, and thanks to David Rounds and Friends of Livermore for pointing that out. Anybody on the council wish to make comments at this point or ask questions? Okay, Councilmember Carling.
Yeah, I think it's fine for the wine part of this. I guess we had a rather lengthy discussion about cannabis, and I guess I would encourage somehow encourage the supervisors to keep the number of cannabis operations at 3 at this point, which is what we agreed to some years ago. And we'll see how that works. So that would be my recommendation to staff when they report back, is to support not increasing at this time the number of cannabis operations in their purview. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Kick.
Thanks for this. I just wanted to do some clarifying questions. I appreciate the size differential slide. I think that was really useful. Can you maybe list some examples of an agricultural use building and what is clearly not an example of an agricultural use building, just so we can be very clear what we are and are not talking about here?
Yeah, that's a great question. So agricultural use buildings, again, have to produce some type of agricultural product. And so, the best example would be a winery that, crushes and ferments grapes, produces wine. A non-agricultural use building would be something that's classified as a visitor serving use. So that would be, something like any of those commercial uses that would be allowed, right? Whether that's, hot air balloon rides or, these artisan craft, sort of manufacturing, locations or any of the boutique dispensaries. All of those are considered visitor serving uses and would not fall underneath the agricultural building and would therefore not be allowed to sort of expand in size.
Okay, thanks. Just wanted a second wrap up on that so people aren't confused. Thank you.
Okay, Vice Mayor Bonanno.
Yeah, I have a couple questions. Maybe to start with a comment. I think as Ms. Jones mentioned, it's really important that we do what we can to maintain the economic viability and vitality of this region. Even though this is county's plan, we obviously have a big stake in ensuring that, and these Measure D is really important to our city as well. So I do have, and I'll just say I appreciate TVC and the other stakeholders sort of coming together to really do some work on ensuring that the needs of the various stakeholders are met. And it sounds like those changes have been incorporated. So I do have some questions about what I understand are the proposed amendments we're making or the tweaks we're making to what LAFCO's recommendations are. Is that how I should understand the set of slides that call out proposed amendments in 3 categories? These are additional changes we'd like to LAFCO to consider incorporating.
So the slides represented a broad summary of the items that LAFCO is considering.
But we're asking for a few additional changes. Is that how I should understand those slides? I'm sorry, it's just a little hard to follow given all the various
Yeah.
overlays and various entities sort of in play here.
So in the staff report, we've identified some clarifications that staff is looking for.
Mhm.
The slides that you're referencing are just there again are summaries of what the LAFCO proposal is, and staff does support that proposal with the clarifications. With respect to kind of the number of cannabis dispensaries and some of the uses that have been outlined in the staff report.
Okay, so just a couple quick questions on the slides, starting with the one, slide 7, item number 1. So is there a reason why we're not being specific about the floor area ratio on that slide? I mean, we're not referring to a particular percentage other than a minimum of 90% for agriculture.
Yeah, let me go back to the slide. Are you referencing this one here?
Mhm.
Yeah, so that was for brevity on the slide, but essentially it would allow for an increase from 1% floor area ratio, which is what the blue box is. That's what's allowed out there today, up to a total of 3.5%. And that's what that green box is.
Got it. Okay, that helps. That I just want to make sure that we are being specific, and even though you didn't have it on the slide. And when it says allow for clustering of development, that sounds kind of subjective. Is there a definition of what that means?
Yeah, so attachment 2 contains the red lines that LAFCO and the stakeholders are proposing. And there is a specific program. It's entitled Program BBB that describes the clustering plan. And so essentially, the building envelopes that are allowed out there today may be combined together to create a larger building envelope to accommodate additional visitor serving uses there.
Okay, I just wanted to be clear that there's a long, lengthy report that goes into specifics, and it's not like someone gets to decide if it's clustering or not clustering, right? It is very specific, and it will be not something that's, sort of subject to a lot of debate. Is that fair?
That's correct.
Okay, and then I just want to agree with Councilmember Carling. Well, let me ask a question first. How many dispensaries do we actually have in operation? I think I know the answer, but just for clarity in the.
Yeah. So staff's confirmed with the county there are 0 currently in operation. However, there are 3 that are in progress. And again, the county limits the total number of dispensaries in the East County area plan to 3.
Okay, I would just say that I concur with Councilmember Carling. Let's get a couple up and operating and see how it goes before we consider changing that number. So I would concur with leaving it at 3. And that's all I had. Thank you very much, everyone, for the work on this.
Councilmember Monroe.
I will also add my thanks for this work. I appreciate the proposed amendments. I wanted to address only one additional issue. Appreciate the prohibition against commercial hemp and cannabis cultivation in the South Livermore Valley area. But I also wanted to just raise the problem with cannabis cultivation in general with regard to climate. It is extremely soil depleting. It is extremely water intensive. As a member of Alameda County, and as part of Livermore, but also as a member of Alameda County and the planet, as we are looking at enabling that cultivation to take place, I'm hoping that we are able to keep that, ensure that it is climate friendly and soil friendly. I'm not sure how I feel about the dispensaries, so I'll just let that go. But I am concerned about the agricultural uses of the agricultural impact on the climate. That's all. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. So I'll just say again, express my appreciation for all the work that went into this, and that it's good to see that there's agreement from a lot of the stakeholders that we do need to do more to help our wine industry. And these recommendations seem very well considered. So I personally support them with the clarifications that staff made in their letter, and also the emphasis that we've heard a couple of times tonight on limiting the number of dispensaries to 3. So at this point, there isn't really a vote that's asked for, but I will ask, is what I just said going to get head nods or somehow to indicate to staff that what I just said pretty well sums it up and whatever everybody else? So then I would ask Jake Potter and Rachel Jones, do you have enough from what you were seeking tonight that you've got clarity from us as to how we're thinking about this so that there's sufficient input for the next sessions at LAFCO?
Yeah, from the City of Livermore standpoint, we do, and thank you for your comments and feedback. So we will take the clarifications that staff recommended and add in the comments about ensuring the number of cannabis dispensaries in East County remains at 3, and then ensuring that cultivation is climate friendly as well. And we will transmit a letter, a formal letter to LAFCO representing the council's discussion and direction.
Okay, thank you. And then I'll ask Rachel directly. Is it clear to you what we've said, and you'll be able to incorporate it in the next proceedings of LAFCO?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to present and hear the City Council's comments, and we will definitely incorporate them ahead of our July 14th regular meeting.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Really appreciate all the hard work that went into this by yourselves and all the stakeholders. So we're now on to item 8.0, council committee reports, matters initiated by the city manager, attorney, staff, and council members. I'll start with council member Kick.
Yes, let me grab my thing here. So I went to the Livermorium opening, which was very nice. I will note that I walked by today. We went downtown for some frozen yogurt, and there is a sign reminding people to not climb on the ball. Please don't do that. But it was being enjoyed properly while we were downtown. I also attended the farewell to Mark Roberts and the welcome to Mariana, and that was very nice. And then my kids and I have still been participating in the Livermore Reads summer program, and we did a mini campsite craft as one of the activities that was very well attended at Rincon. It's really nice to see other branches being highly activated. It was a very, very hot day, but staff did a great job creating some shade for everybody. And I think it was a not very busy 2 weeks for me, actually, which was quite nice. So I'll just end it there.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Carling.
Yes, thanks. The couple of things that I didn't include in my report earlier was I did attend the ribbon cutting of the Livermore High School gymnasium. It is fantastic. And Vice Mayor and I participated with the Climate Action Plan Advisory Committee. They had a meeting in the evening one day recently, and we participated in that to get some of their feedback and hear them talk about the progress they made. I do have one matter to initiate, and that is at a recent council meeting, I asked the city if the city had ever had a gun buyback program. We learned that we haven't. I would like staff to look into what it takes to implement such a program in Livermore and bring information to the council for us to consider. Such information should include what weapons, including ammunition, are part of the buyback, what an individual receives for turning in a weapon, cash versus a gift card, the cost to purchase the weapons and to destroy the weapons, how to finance a buyback program, possible participation of other cities, the location for the buyback program, who is eligible to turn in a weapon, are there implications for folks turning in weapons, and anything else deemed important by staff. And if possible, I think it'd be great if the council could hear back from staff at a meeting sometime in September. So do I get head nods? I see.
Could we do that? Could we hear from staff that makes sense just on the timing?
Yep.
Yes, Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council, the timing makes sense. We could definitely accomplish the request by September and bring some information back. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I guess that's, you see all of us head nodding, that makes sense.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay, and I would say on the, so thank you for that. And just a reminder to everybody, but before we go for head nods, when we're asking staff to perform on a matters initiated, we're going to check in to make sure that they have the capacity and the timing makes sense. So thank you. Councilmember Monroe.
Well, I also attended the Livermore. I attended a bunch of these things. I was not able to make the gymnasium. I also had an EBCE meeting, which there's an agenda. I posted the agenda for that. And an ABAG meeting, which I just want to call out. That's the Associated Bay Area Governments. And there was a presentation, which I highly recommend, on the funding that's available in order to accomplish the RENA number goals, or to help move towards those RENA number goals. So that was interesting. With that, I have one personal note, which is that I'm watching my grandkids this is the midweek. The youngest one has already run into the room twice. I've been pulled back by my husband. And I speak a lot when I can about how important it is to remember the work that doesn't get acknowledged. I was there, but it's been a while. I'm there again. And boy, it's really different living it 24/7 than it is remembering what it was like, 30 years ago. I think it's really important to remember the parental work that takes place. With that in mind, I want to transition to another matters initiated. And that goes back to what public comment by Nikki Santa-Stephen said about the events on the national scale and the Supreme Court decision on Friday. She asked how the council could respond to Roe v. Wade, and just be real clear about it. The removal of the rights of half the population to have autonomy over their own bodies. So what can Livermore do? This is a lot of what happens with reproductive justice happens within the state and national context. But there are ways that the city can facilitate efforts to protect the rights of women to care for their own health. And so I would like to ask that city staff research those opportunities for the city and with city partners, and then come back to the council. And I recognize we've already had a big ask, so let's make it October. So with just the results of the research for the council to discuss. There's a lot of moving parts here. I'm not trying to ask for anything specific, but I think it's important that we at least have the information on the table so that we can consider what our options are going forward. With that, first of all, is that clear enough, city manager? And second of all, do we have the resources to do it in that time frame?
Mr. Mayor, if I may, this is Mariana Marashova, City Manager. Councilmember Monroe, yes, I think the requested timeline to conduct research and bring the results of the research back by October is doable. We can accomplish that. Thank you.
Okay, I see Councilmember Kick wants to comment. Well, only one other of us can comment on this, and I take it you want to.
Yeah, I was hoping to. As you said that, I wonder, there's another piece of information I'm hoping staff can bring back to us, which is what the resources are currently in the county. My recollection is that there's not many, and what we can do to support making resources more accessible, because even though we live in a state that is currently being protected, that doesn't mean that there's equitable access throughout our region. And I would like to have some more information on that. Thank you. And just clarify that it's for all birthing people. So that's just a language change that I want to make sure we talk about too. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, Councilmember Kick, this is doable. We will add this to the scope for the research. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Vice Mayor Bonanno.
Yeah, okay, so two of us.
Wait, did we get head nods on that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, my turn. Two of us have spoken on that, and I guess we can't speak any further on it, so we're done with that one. Let's see, I'll just change subjects for a minute. I think I would like to know what the record is for ribbon cuttings in a 2-week period. I did 10. Count them, 10. I'm sure I'm in the top 3, if not number 1. That would be good to know. I will just say all of them were really important and special in their own way. Really enjoyed doing all of them, and not to make light of any of them. They were all in various ways really speak to what happens in our community and all the great things that are going on. On the Livermore High School gymnasium that I went to along with Councilmember Carling, and also our city manager, Minosheva, was there as well. It was really, I mean, it's a spectacular new facility. And I was thinking while we were there that, you know, it's the students and the teachers and the administration that has an awful lot to do with the results that a school achieves, but giving those teachers and those students tools and facilities that they can be proud of, that, you know, are as good as our neighboring cities. It was the best part of it was not only touring the facilities, but hearing the students talk about their new facilities and how proud they were and how much of a difference it made about, you know, we saw the wrestling team with their new facility. And, you know, it's a big part of students' maturation in high school when they get to have nice facilities and they get to, you know, grow as human beings, not just as athletes and as students. So I just was very, very pleased with it. I think it's really important that the community supports those bond measures because they make a big difference in the experience students and teachers have in our city. So really, really appreciated that and enjoyed doing that very much. And I'll just leave it there.
Okay, thank you. I would, one thing was already mentioned, the Livermore Plaza. I go by there occasionally, all the time actually, and look at what's going on. And what I find amazing is you see the kids really enjoying it. And I've noticed adults watching the kids and they can only hold back for so long. And then they have to go play with it as well. So I think it's a great ad. And, you know, the city's got, you mentioned all those ribbon cuttings. It's pretty fantastic. Lots of good things are going on. And I think we have a lot to celebrate. At this point, I think we'll now adjourn to a regular city council meeting on July 11th, 2022 at 7 p.m. at this point, held in person and remotely. So thank you and good night.
Good night.
Hi, everyone.